Welcome, everyone. Here are the sports writers. They're all here in total. We've got Phil Stacy from the Salem News, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, and Nick Kukuru, the sports editor of the Gloucester Times, all here talking sports. We got a bunch of things to talk about. But first, let me, before we go to the Super Bowls, you guys pick games every single week. And Matt Williams has been leading for quite a while here in this, I believe. And he ends up winning the season picks for, picking the weekly games. Does that all sound right?
It does. It sounds right. It's a science, as we've said many times. There's some luck involved, and there's a lot of scouting and information involved. I bother a lot of assistant coaches around the region trying to, hey, text your buddy at this school, see if the school they played is any good. Like, what's the deal going to be? And they shall all remain nameless. And as I said on Twitter, none of them have ever worked for Neil Weidman. It's not like the 7 guys on the Neil Weidman coaching tree that I text every day or anything like that. That's we'll leave them nameless to protect their innocence.
There's no money involved with this, is there? I mean, is there a big bonus from the company?
No, there's not.
We should, what we should do is we should purchase one of those fantasy football things, and we'll call it the Kipper Cup.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll have to pose with it. We'll buy like a championship belt or something, and maybe staple some ginger snaps or Lorna Doones to the thing.
I wanted to say, after you tweeted that out about reaching out to assistant coaches and all, I'm not so sure, in the spirit of Hall of Fame voting season, that maybe you shouldn't have an asterisk next to your title. I think for the most part, the rest of us just kind of pick the games. I don't really put a lot of deep thought into it. I just kind of pick what I can't speak for the 2 Ninos and Gene, the writing machine, but I am not looking for that extra edge, Mr. Balco, that some others may be.
Well,
I'd say the first few weeks I pick from the gut, and I go with the teams that I like. I don't even look at your guys' picks. But then once I lost some ground, then I was just trying to see what you guys did and maybe pick an upset here that I didn't think was actually going to happen, but it might hit and that kind of thing. So it depends. Once you get behind a little bit, you got to make up some ground some way.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out for me.
I'd say what did I finish? 2 games behind you, Willie?
Sure. Yeah,
3
I think
games
so.
behind you or something? Two games maybe? I think, if anything, if I have a fault, it's that I tend to pick local teams more often than not. The teams we cover, naturally, they're the people who read the newspaper and all, or online. So I tend to pick those teams to win, sometimes against my better judgment, but that's on me. I'll take that. But it's all natural. It's not enhanced with phone calls to trees or coaches or whatnot. So.
Well, you got to do your research. You got to do your research. You got to learn about the research isn't all for the picks. How do you think we get the feature stories? The podcast information. You got to do your homework. People think that Tony Romo just rolls on to the broadcast and just spouts off the top of his head. No, you got to get educated. You got to do your homework.
I do my homework.
This stuff is not just,
not for nefarious purposes.
This stuff is not off the cuff. This is well researched. This is how you learn. What's going on. You got to.
This is an asterisk. This is so Matt Williams wins this in the smartphone era of high school sports picks.
As a great litigator once said, this is salacious, egregious, and outrageous. And I'll leave it at that.
I mean, and the other thing is, we mentioned the Kipper Cup. I mean, that's how you learn. He would be on the phone to other journalists. I personally do not trust other journalists and what they might think. I go straight to the coaches. So I think I've improved upon the former scouting methods of some of our late colleagues.
Hey, let us raise a Lorna Doone to him tonight.
That's right.
So I think I can pop this up here. There is, if I think I got that, there it is right there. The picks, that's the story right there in the Salem News. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he's
all
on the
right.
job reporting, which I like. I like that photo of him.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Well, this took more time than I thought it would, but congratulations, Matt.
So you don't know what kind of controversy might crop up out of seemingly nothing.
Oh yeah,
That's exactly right.
we can turn any nonsense into a 5-minute segment, Bill, if you let us. I mean, we're dangerous
Oh, yeah.
that way.
No, I know that. I get that. So let's go to the Super Bowls. You know, it's funny. I was thinking this week, when the Super Bowls, they laid them out, you know, like 2 a day, 3 a day, you know, I thought, oh, is this good idea or not? After it went through, I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I loved it. You know, we had one
Yeah.
on Tuesday, you know, you had one on Wednesday, you had one third, whatever. I thought, you know, that makes a lot of sense for these kids to be kind of, instead of having 8 games in one day, you have 2 or 3 or something like that. I kind of liked it. Having said that, though, I know it's just an aberration, I would imagine, because the Revolution may not be in the playoffs next year, and Gillette Stadium will be available for one big Super Saturday or whatever it is. So
Ew.
Would have been available anyway. They went down
Yeah,
in
it
flames
barely.
first round.
Yeah. What a disgrace, huh?
well,
I
whatever.
kind of liked it too, Bill. You know, at the time I wasn't thrilled, especially with an 8 o'clock game that was going to be, we knew we'd be pushing our deadline for selfish reasons. But now that we've had a few days to look back on it, I thought it was pretty cool, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, Willie and I made the trip down there Wednesday and Thursday. And, you know, we were able to give each of our 2 schools that took part, Swampscott and Marblehead, their own kind of day in the sun, and they all got their coverage, as opposed to trying to like cram it all into one section. If it's Saturday, it doesn't come out in the paper till Monday. So I liked it. I know we were up against the gun, so to speak, on Wednesday, and Thursday was a little bit easier because it was an earlier game, and we were able to take our time a little bit more and craft those stories. But all in all, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that 3 p.m. start for Marblehead had to be sweet for you guys. You're right on that front.
Well, it was. And you know what's funny is when we, you know, we had plenty to talk about on 2 rides down to Foxborough and back. And we were saying, I think it was on the first night. In fact, Willie, correct me. We may have even said this beforehand, but when we were looking at the 8 Super Bowl games they had, we kind of said that we thought Marblehead and North Attleboro might be the most competitive, well-played game of the entire Super Bowl schedule. And it turns out it was. That was a fantastic game.
I think we said it on the podcast last
You
week.
did.
Our listeners,
Absolutely.
are with us. That they know.
Yeah, I mean, that proved prophetic. Not that Swampscott didn't. You know, Swampscott won 14-7. I don't necessarily think it was a 14-7 game. I mean, myself, I mean, the score is what it was, but I thought Marblehead, Swampscott, played much better than that. Would they have 4 fumbles and a pick, Willie, that prevented them from doing what else they had to do? But
Yeah, I think they lost 4 fumbles. Yeah, how often you win a Super Bowl losing 4 fumbles? That's you know, wow.
And you know, hey, in fairness, North Reading played tough for a half, better than I would have thought. I think Swampscott just kind of wore them down, and North Reading wasn't able to come back and get that tying score that they needed in the second half. But while I didn't talk to him, I walked by the North Reading coach. He was talking with some reporters, and he was saying that, you know, kind of saying, hey, the Cape Ann League might have got a bad rap. It's a very good league. And I don't think that we ever said it wasn't a good league. I think what the point that we've made on this podcast is it's just not, in this year, and generally it's not as strong as the Northeastern Conference. I mean, hey, the conference had 2 Super Bowl teams this year, 2 Super Bowl winners this year.
Well, I don't think, you know, I don't think it's ever going to be, and nor was it ever. I mean, you know, going back to when
Right.
Nick Kucker's Gloucester teams, he was covering them, used to beat the bag out of Masco. I mean, you know, the Cape Ann League is not winning playoff games against the NEC. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And speaking of our homework on the podcast, Phil called that maybe Swampscott would have to pull out a trick play for those that want to go back to the tape. And that's exactly what they did. So maybe he does some more research and homework than he wants to let on.
Well, I just want to say to our listeners here, and I hope I'm not telling tales out of school, but the nice thing about the last game of the day at Gillette And we experienced this a couple of years ago with St. John's Prep and Kooks. I know you've done this with Gloucester when they played like the late game on Super Bowl Saturdays. They're not rushing the teams out of there. So you can actually hang around on the field a little bit and they let you celebrate. And, you can interview kids in the field and everybody's taking pictures with, Gillette in the background and the Super Bowl posters and all that. Well, when Willie and I went down to talk to the Swampscott kids after they won, we got down there with maybe 2 minutes left in the game, Willie, I think it was, a minute and a half left.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, we were talking to one of the security people, on the field and watching the game, and we come out and so they go crazy, they win, and they shake hands with North Reading, and they're trying to line up both teams for the trophy presentation, and I happened to see Bob Serino, the Swampscott coach. I said, "Hey, Bobby, congratulations!" He says to me, I don't tweet. I think he mentioned the same. I don't Twitter. He said to Nick Giannino for the preview. I don't do any of that social media stuff, but I watched your podcast and I'm thinking, oh boy, what do we say? What happened? He goes, "You guys had my back. That a boy." And he walks off. So I was like, okay, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. No, great job, guys.
I got to say, to Matt's point from a few minutes ago, he mentioned that you guys were talking last week about the Marblehead North Attleboro game. I kind of used that information and dropped it when I was talking to a friend the other day after the Swampscott win. He was at the Swampscott game, and to try to make myself look good, like I knew what was going on, I dropped that information. So it paid off. I'm just saying it paid off for me, and it paid off for the podcast too. So there you go.
You know what I liked about the aftermath of that Marblehead game is that I think so many coaches, and let's boil it down. Well, so many coaches, but in the sport of football particularly, we talk about the influence that Bill Belichick has had on all levels of football. I mean, everybody defers to kick now. Doesn't matter where it is, NFL, high school, whatever. Just as one example of things he's done like that. Well, most coaches, I think, really play it close to the vest and don't really, I don't want to say they don't tell you how they're feeling or whatnot, but they can be a little bit guarded sometimes. I thought it was great that Jim Rudloff fully admitted after that Super Bowl win, this means a ton. This gets the monkey off our back. No one can say that, oh, hey, there's Marblehead, they're great, but they can't win the big game. Now they can win the big game. And Jim admitted, I don't want to be Marv Levy. I don't want to go to 3 or 4 of these Super Bowls and not win. I thought that was refreshing honesty. I know Jim is always pretty honest, sometimes to the point that it gets under some people's skin. But from our point of view, it's fantastic. He fills up the notebook, to use the parlance. And I just thought it was really honest for him to say that, that, hey, this program is as good as, we're believed to be in the regular season. We've proven we can play with the big boys. We've proven that we can finish the job. We've proven even when our opponents score the tying touchdown with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left, we can come back and win that game. And maybe this is a good segue to talk about Connor Cronin's performance in that game.
Can I jump in for one thing here? I just wanted to ask you guys.
You can jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, whatever. Nick Kukru, you could respond to this as well, but we this is the first year we had the statewide playoff. So that means that normally Swampscott and North Reading might play in a North final, and that wasn't the case. They meet in the Super Bowl. And in that regard, I always knew that's a possible scenario that 2 North teams could meet in a Super Bowl. But, for that regard, I think it's good. I mean, when you think back over the years, there are some other great teams from the North Shore that might have got eliminated in the North final after that other team, I'm thinking of Melrose, for example, goes on and wins the Super Bowl. So I was skeptical of the statewide tournament, but I'm kind of buying it in now because we had good competitive games throughout much of the games in Foxborough this past week. So because of the way they were able to pair things up and match up, so there were no big blowouts in certainly the local teams that you guys covered. So anyways, I just wanted to say that. But Nick, what's your take on the take of having the statewide tournament opposed to the North, South, West, East kind of thing?
I mean, at least they're 1 for 1, I'd say. I mean, I think the rankings across all sports kind of turned out to be, for the most part, I mean, nothing's perfect, but they turned out to be pretty spot on. And, as far as the travel concerns, I mean, I heard guys like, us complain about travel. We don't want to go for long drives in the first round, but I didn't hear the kids or the teams complain about it really at all. I think they kind of, were happy with the opportunity to play. I know, was it, for example, Manchester Essex girls soccer had to go all the way to Springfield. They didn't care. They were happy to be in the tournament. They were fine to go play Pope Francis 3 hours away. So, I mean, I didn't think that was as big of a deal as we thought it might be. And the rankings were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I think particularly for football too, it worked out great. I know, some of the other sports, there was some huge brackets. You probably had to do a lot of traveling if you're making a deep run. At least in the football, it's once a week. You can get geared up for that game, get excited maybe to travel a little bit and go and try and get a win on the road. And I think, like Nick said, the rankings, they kind of nailed the ranking. I mean, a lot of 1 and 2 seeds or 3 seeds even making the finals. So in terms of that, the committee did a pretty good job, I think.
Even before that, I mean, we kind of scratched our heads. Danvers 3 and 5 hosting a playoff game, 7 seed, but they kind of were the 7th seed in that bracket. I mean, they were better than some of those teams below them with a better record.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, it worked out okay. I wouldn't break our hands patting them on the back. I mean, I think if you're Bishop Fenwick, you're wondering why you were seated on the same side as Swampscott. I think if you're Hamilton Wenham, you're probably wondering why Cohasset, the Super Bowl champion, was seated as low as they were. Maybe Hamilton Wenham should have played them a round or 2 later. So there are a few wrinkles here and there that you could potentially take issue with. I mean, Springfield Central being a 5 seed, and kind of killing everyone on the way to the championship is a little questionable, I think. But, by and large, it was good, but it wasn't perfect by any means.
Never is, though. Even when, with the old system, we had our complaints. So it's never going to be 100% perfect.
Yeah, I think I might have said it to you earlier, Willie, when we were talking about hockey. There's always has to be an egregious example or two. They can never just totally nail it. Catholic Memorial in Division II is egregious and kind of killed the top 2 divisions when it comes to Super Bowls. But I thought for the most part, the teams were ranked where they should have been. As long as they were in the top 4 and it didn't affect a home game or an away game, I think for the most part, they got those right.
No, you're right. And I do wonder too, across the board in all the sports, if, the home field advantage adds an element of self-fulfilling prophecy to this thing, because before you get to a certain round and everybody's traveling, you're on a neutral field, right? But, if it's say 4 versus 5 and it's a close game and the home team number 4 wins because being at home tilts it that 1-2%, now everybody looks smart. Oh, the home seed won. But, that being at home, I wonder if that adds an element of sort of self-fulfillment to the seeds. I don't know. But again, I'm picking nits. I mean, it was pretty good.
Phil, do you want to pick up on Connor Cronin?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Before you start, Phil, was there any record set there? I mean, what do you have, 267 for the year?
Receiving, yeah, he had 263, Willie, I want to say 263 yards receiving.
Yeah, so that of course the state does not keep detailed records. That is a North Shore Super Bowl record for yards, ties the record for catches to my knowledge, and touchdowns, I don't know, 3. There's probably been a few guys that have had 3, but nevertheless a heck of a day. I mean, it's got to be a school record, I think, in both those departments too.
Well, if you look back and if you look back at the state semifinal against, the Bombers, Westfield, thank you. Against Westfield and then the Super Bowl, he had 400 yards receiving. He had 6 touchdowns. He had, 18 catches, I want to say. He had over 500 all-purpose yards in the 2 games combined. I mean, I asked himself, I asked Jim Rudloff, and I asked the offensive coordinator, Mike Giotti, after the Super Bowl. All right, and to use a phrase that Willie mentioned, it's like a baseball parlance, were you kind of holding back on him a little bit, keeping him in the bullpen when he could have been pitching every 5 days kind of thing as a workhorse back? And they all 3 of them said, no, not really. I mean, we just had so many weapons that we didn't need to run him 20 times a game or get him involved and, get him a dozen looks receiving, that kind of thing. And while that's true, I also think the coaches knew where their bread was buttered. And when the time came for it, they went to the guy with the best hands and the most athleticism, and they got him the football. I mean, the two, well, he had 3 Super Bowl touchdowns, but 2 of those were absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the one right before the end of the first half, where he goes up in double coverage, catches the ball, comes down with it, eludes 2 tackles, shoots all the way downfield, evades another tackle at the 5 and dives into the end zone. I think I tweeted out, like, that was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in 32 years. And when I saw it on replay, and then somebody has like a slowed down version of it where it's even more impressive when you watch it, it really was amazing when you consider his team was down by 7. They were going to go to the locker room and kick to North Attleboro. They really had momentum going against them, and he flipped it just like that. And then the touchdown that won it was what, 82 yards, Willie? 83 yards? What was that?
Something like that. Yeah, perfect screen right up the middle. Great blocks. A couple of baseball guys, Duty and Shane Keogh throwing those blocks.
Sugar Shane Keogh.
Really
nice
impressive stuff.
And just a simple, screen where he just shot up the middle, went kind of left to right. 83 yards, boom, down goes North Attleboro. Marblehead wins the title. I mean, it was a remarkable performance. The Marblehead principal, Dan Bauer, who I'm sure many of our listeners know used to be the football coach at Beverly, won a pair of Super Bowls at Beverly High in the 2010s, said he reminded, Cronin's performance reminded him of what Brendan Flaherty did for Beverly, a dozen years ago. And I can't remember, Willie, were you at that Super Bowl game with me, the first Super Bowl Beverly won, when Flaherty was only a sophomore, but he made this like ridiculously acrobatic catch on 4th down in the back of the end zone when Beverly was trailing 14-0, got him on the board, and they ended up winning that game?
No.
Yeah, that was kind of reminiscent of that. But,
Well,
Yeah, no, it was a
crazy thing too
great day.
is Cronin's got another year. I mean,
Yeah,
he's only a junior.
where I think he will be the feature guy. You're losing Josh Robertson, you're losing George Percy out of the backfield, you're losing James Duty, Craig Michalowski, those guys. But yeah, he should be much more featured, which is a frightening thought if you get Marblehead on your schedule next year.
So I'm looking now. So Cronin, it appears he's going to end up second in school history for receiving yards in a single season. The big tight end Will Millett in 2014 had 1,097. And it looks like Connor comes up this year with about 1,060 something. I think he's going to pass Jason Romans. I haven't done the full math already, but those will be the 2 guys over 1,000 yards receiving on a North Shore. That's a pretty select group. There's probably only about 10 guys that have had 1,000 yards receiving in a single season. So that's pretty impressive. As
Jackson
a whole.
Delaney just missing out. I think he was about 970 or so for St. John's.
The prep had 2 guys in the 900s. So they spread the ball around really well between O'Fury and Delaney, very impressively. Imagine if either of those guys had, with a feature guy, they could have had 2,000 yards receiving, for crying out loud. But, obviously they take coverage off of each other, and they both were able to do so well because of each other and thrive off each other and all that good stuff. But yeah, just sitting here looking up some of that stuff. Very, very interesting, and Will Millett was such a big play threat. He only had caught 42 passes and Connor caught 71 passes. So he had almost twice as many catches as Millett. And that's the thing about Connor. He's so good on those 3rd down conversions, finding the sticks. And just he never seems to run we watch games on TV and the announcers are always cursing those guys that run their route. It's 3rd and 7, you run a 6-yard route. How dumb are you? Cronin never does that. He's always ahead of those sticks. And, for a kid who's just a junior, like Nick said, that's really impressive. He's a really smart player in addition to all of his physical skills.
Now, 71 receptions, I know is going to be way up there, but there was a kid at Fenwick, remember? Didn't he have like 100 receptions one year? And they didn't even have a particularly good team. They were maybe 3-8 or 4-7, but they threw the ball a ton to him. Was it Brett Kiddick was the quarterback?
That's correct. Ryan Lipka was his name.
Lipka, yeah. There you go.
He's quite the he caught a lot of passes. That was sort of the advent of the that short screen game, and Yep, 115 catches for 1,214 yards. So those are records that will probably be standing for quite some time.
But that's only about 10 yards a catch or so. That's not like a ton of big plays. Not to diminish what he did, but
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's it's still impressive though. I mean, that's wow. Yeah, that's quite something. But I mean, for a Super Bowl though, I mean, 10 for 260, that's pretty good. I mean, West Rocket a couple of years ago had a $189 and we were all kind of marveling at it. And obviously different level of competition and all that stuff, but Connor blew that out of the water.
Yeah.
The others that come to mind, I know Derek Pratt from Swampscott had a $185 against the same North Attleboro team back in 2002. And of course, 94 Feldberg for Peabody from Steve Lemazny, he caught 10 passes for $194. So that's funny that the record, even with all these spread offenses, the record before Connor was from way back in 94, almost 30 years ago.
Was that Peabody New Bedford in the Super Bowl?
That's correct.
Wow, 10 passes he caught. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, 10.
Hey,
10
while we're talking about great performances, I think we should mention Xavier Bastogne.
I was going to bring him up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotta give him some
Willie
credit.
made a great point in his game story that, for all the memorable plays he made running the ball this year or blocking a field goal to beat Beverly and whatnot. I mean, here he is. He throws a halfback option pass for the winning points in Swampscott Super Bowl win. Pretty remarkable, Nick.
Yeah, well, and just the way he ran the ball. I mean, they could rely on him all game. I know they had the fumbles lost and the turnover problem, but he was the one guy that I think North Reading was really fearful of every time he touched the ball.
He's also a relatively questionable flag from having a 101-yard pick six to really put the exclamation point on his senior season too.
That's right.
If there's no flag on that play, 21 zip, and that game looks a little bit different. I mean, it's kind of a shame that, it's not really a shame per se. It's the old Dick Lynch story where, Coach Bondalevich went for it on fourth down instead of kicking a field goal on some Thanksgiving day in the 50s because he thought, 50 years from now would rather be remembered as a 1-point win than a blowout. That was an old story Dick used to like to tell. And so, maybe that's the case here. But, having said that, Swampscott's pretty close to turning that game into a blowout there if it wasn't for a little bit of laundry.
I will say this as we wrap up our Super Bowl segment here is I think we were well represented. I think, North Reading did a lot better than I thought they would against a really Swampscott that's having a fantastic year. That was a good, they really showed up in that game. And of course, congrats to Marblehead and Swampscott, as we've been talking about. Phil, I know we also want to talk about the field hockey or the All-Stars, not just the All-Stars. I mentioned the field hockey because they were out in Monday's paper. So let me just go quickly to Nick Kukuru because the Gloucester Times has done some All-Stars already. Quick notes on that. And then Phil, you've got it to wrap us up on the other All-Star news coming out of the Salem News Monday and the rest of this week. So Nick Kukuru, why don't you pick us up on the Gloucester Times All-Stars?
Yeah, that's what happens when you have no Super Bowl teams and everybody getting eliminated in the second round of the tournament. You bring out your All-Stars a week early. I read last week, boys and girls. It was particularly a really big season for some of the boys teams, especially, golf had probably the best overall fall season, not collectively, that they've ever had on Cape Ann, with Gloucester winning, Division III North Rockport, getting to the Division III finals. So there were a lot of candidates this year. I know we had 2 MVPs I'll recognize. Andrew Coelho was the boys MVP for the area. He set the Gloucester single season record, 29 goals this season. I believe that led the NEC. He was just unstoppable pretty much this season. I think he had 16 assists to go along with those 29 goals. And Gloucester won 15 games this year, won the NEC Lynch division. And on the girls' side, Amy Vito Palova, who you guys probably recognize, she's a Marblehead hockey player, but she's a Manchester Essex field hockey star. As a Cal Baker Player of the Year, and she just dominates games. She doesn't put up huge stats like Coelho did, but watch them play and you'll see that she's the best player on the field more often than not. Really controls games, possession, two-way play, and those are the 2 top stars in my area this year.
Phil?
So what I would say is, picking these all-star teams, as Kooks could tell you, as a one-man show down in Gloucester, and the three of us could on the greater North Shore here. It's a lot of work, but rewarding, because you're rewarding for us, because we're rewarding the best of the best that we have from our area. So yeah, it takes a little bit of legwork, and in the post-COVID world, we're not having people into our office anymore for photos and things like that. So we're chasing everything down, but it's still worthwhile to put that out. I'll say this, I find that choosing the players of the year and sometimes coaches of the year seems to get a little harder all the time. Now, as you mentioned, we ran field hockey in Monday's paper. That was a slam dunk. I mean, Maggie Sturgis was so far beyond anyone else in terms of skill and stats and leadership and whatnot, that was a pretty easy choice. But in a few of our other sports, and we don't want to give anything away because we haven't run, what do we got, golf going Wednesday, Nick?
Yeah, and speaking of the golf, I still haven't even finalized my player of the year, so stay tuned for that on Wednesday. We had some really good golfers this year. St. John's Prep won a state title. Beverly went undefeated. We had a couple other teams with some scratch golfers at the top of their lineup, so it's not going to be easy to pick that player of the year. But yeah, look out for those on Wednesday.
And we don't go co-players of the year ever. So
No.
Like you pick one, and that's what you
I will
stick
not be doing two.
We call that the Matt Jenkins Memorial Rule.
Yes.
We did it once, and he about had a stroke, so we don't do it anymore.
Should we say that Matt Jenkins almost memorial? Because he's not dead, but
Well, yeah, he's passed on as far as we're concerned.
yes, that's true.
I'll tell you, I was thinking of Matt a few minutes ago when you were talking about Fenwick, and but Matt Williams came up with the answers, so there was some good stuff there. So we were channeling Matt Jenkins earlier in the podcast, I feel. Yeah. The Fenwick connection is where we're going. Yeah.
We have boys and girls cross country running Thursday, which we do have players of the year already set for. Football is this Friday, which Willie and I will be talking probably after this podcast to get all the award winners set for that. And then girls and boys soccer next week, volleyball, and coaches of the year. So yeah, I got a couple weeks of all-stars, and of course winter sports kind of start really in earnest. They start at the end of this week for some teams, but really in earnest beginning of next week. So that's exciting as well.
Yeah. You guys want to share anything on winter sports at all? I mean, on any buzz that you're hearing, whether Nick Kukuru up in your area or other people as well? Any winter buzz ahead? Basketball, hockey, wrestling.
I think Gloucester boys hockey is looking pretty strong this season. They might have the two best forwards in the NEC back, Jack Costanzo and Emerson Marshall. And I think they lost one top six forward and one top pairing defenseman from last year's team. So that this is a year that if they're gonna push it to another level, they could have a chance. But I mean, of course, they got to get by Marblehead and Masco first. Those two teams have had their number the last few seasons.
I was going to say, Costanzo is obviously a fantastic player, as is Emerson, but I think AJ Sacco would probably be in that conversation too. The Masco sophomore who lit it up last year as a freshman, and I wouldn't imagine he would be staying at Masco past the season. He's got a prep school future, I would guess, but he should have a really good season, I would think, for Masco this winter.
I throw a shout out to Endicott, the men and women hockey, both ranked in the top 10. I got a chance to watch the men at home against Curry this past weekend, and really good hockey. They got a goalie from Florida who's playing really well, setting a lot of their records. They got Mitch Shaheen from St. John's Prep, who scored 2 shorties in the game. Now, one of them empty net, but hey, it still counts in the record books. And they got a 6'5" Belarusian named Svet that nobody wants to mess with either. So that was fun. One great story from that game, in between the second and the third period, there was a little guy from Curry running around with his socks on trying to find the skate sharpener. And so I grabbed the Endicott attendant and helped him find the skate sharpener. Kid ends up scoring the game tying goal early in the third period with his new sharpened skates. So I might have been, on the bad list from Santa, but Endicott ended up coming back and winning the game anyway. So that's one of those things you don't see every day.
Gentlemen, we have like 60 seconds left. So Phil, since you're the executive sports editor here, anything else you want to touch on here to wrap us up this week?
Well, I think my assistant might have some news he wants to share that he threw out on Twitter earlier today. If I'll let him take the honors, so to speak.
I've done enough rambling. People can check out the tweets, but I guess Marblehead and Swampscott were not the only people to get rings this fall, and we'll leave it at that. There's some engaging news out there, if you will.
Well, let's put it this way: when you brought up Matt Jenkins earlier, he and I were texting, and the conversation was if Mr. Edward Niswantowski or Mr. Terrence Lee might be in a black tuxedo come April around your presence.
Oh my goodness. Oh, gee whiz. I don't think, let's not give anybody any ideas. Oh, geez.
Hey, you know what? What better way to welcome a new family member than to introduce her to PB football royalty,
Man,
yeah, well, could be. Yeah.
Matt Williams is definitely on a roll this week. He's on a roll. He's peaking here. So, well, congratulations, Matt. And what's
no, it's really all the support from everyone. I mean, we've been sitting on this news for quite some time, but I said to my fiance, I got to just make a quick post here. I'm tired of like having to dance around this thing and like phrase it different ways. You get to wear a ring around and let everybody know. Nobody knows my story, so I'm just gonna throw this post out there, and we certainly appreciate all the support from the greater North Shore sports fans and luminaries.
It is cool to see all the people who responded to it, check in and see it. Sometimes people you don't always see or hear from on social media, but that's nice to see.
It warms the heart in this Christmas season. There will be no demerit for this.
We are all about the warmth at Christmas.
And I give you credit, Matt, for not waiting until Christmas Eve and doing one of those kinds of engagement posts on Christmas Eve. So nice job.
Let it be known the actual proposal was done after a Pingree football game. So there's that.
And I saw you got a shout out from a former Pingree star there. Didn't Ricky Arias tweet at you?
Yeah, true life. That's a good point.
Hey.
Yeah, so it all comes full circle. That's the funny thing. You guys know you've been around long enough. Like sometimes you touch people's lives and they remember you, and that's cool to know that years and years later these kids that you write about still care somewhat. I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty rewarding. Not to get like too sentimental or whatever. And I'm certain that goes for everybody on this podcast if they had some good similar news. Obviously, you old guys have been married for quite some time, but
let's stop right there. Our time is up, Matt. Seriously,
Willie, you are the real deal.